Hi there, it's Ian here, and you're watching Grumpy Opinions, the show where I'm going to tell you all about what I think of films, TV shows, games, and life in general. Let's get on with the show.
The Mandalorian is a Star Wars TV show on Disney+, which has now reached the end of its second season. Chapter 16, The Rescue, aka season finale, starts out surprisingly with Slave One chasing down an Imperial shuttle, which has that wee nerdy scientist on it. And when they manage to board it, one of the guys goes completely malky with the other one, and then takes the scientist hostage, giving Kara a whole load of grief about how the rebels are terrorists, and about how he was there on the Death Star when they blew up Alderaan, so she shoots him in the face. After that, it's attack on Battleship Gus, and they use the shuttle to crash land into the bay and shooty-toot their whole way up to the bridge, all except for Mandy though, because he's on a sneaky mission to go and save Bubba Gregg. Unfortunately though, he ends up getting sidelined when they launch the Dark Troopers, and one of them gets out just before he manages to space the rest of them, and it turns it into a massive big punchy fight before he finally manages to rip the head off it. And then he gets into the cell and finds Gus there, and he's like, "Hi mate, I've got a sword. Bet you didn't expect to see me here, no one else did either. But here's what, if you let me live, you can take your wee bogey and go." But of course it's a ruse and they end up having a massive fight, and of course Mandy wins. I mean, what were you expecting? But in the end he spares Gus and they head to the bridge where Starbuck isn't very happy. You see, it turns out that because he won the sword off Gus, that makes him the rightful owner of the sword, and technically the King of Mandalore. And turns out she can only get it back by kicking his ass. And he tries to be like, "Well, take it." And she's like, "No, I can't, I actually have to beat you." Which is some next level King Arthur, Phoenix One sort of stuff right there. But anyway, before they can get into a tussle or something, the Dark Troopers fly back because jetpacks. And it all looks pretty grim as they start smashing down the door, but then, out of heckin' nowhere, an X-Wing flies in, and the pilot snaps at a green lightsaber and chops all of them to junk before coming into the room and revealing himself to be Luke Skywalker. And it turns out he's there to pick up Bubba Gregg. Yeah, he heard that signal. And of course, it's time for a big tearful goodbye between Mandy and the little green thing, and he even takes his helmet off so that they can have a little bit of FaceTime. And then the episode ends as Luke, Greg and R2-D2 all get in the lift and say bye-bye. Well, apart from there being a post-credit scene where Boba Fett goes to Jabba's palace and kills everyone there, which declares himself king of the big chair. End of season. So what did I think? Well, I have to say, it's been a very up and down season, and no episode expressed that quite as much as this one. But I mean, I would be lying if I said there was nothing that I enjoyed here. I liked the opening, I liked the bit with the nasty pilot. I mean, it's rare on Star Wars, and indeed any kind of war thing, to really get both sides of the point of view. And this show has done that a couple of times. And yeah, I kind of liked it because, you know, you see that the Empire are basically space Nazis. But even then, it's worth remembering that as far as they're concerned, the rebels are terrorists, and they're terrorists who blew up a whole space station full of their mates. And yeah, there was an awful lot of action in this episode, and true, some of it was the crappy Stormtrooper cannon fodder and stuff, but some of it was really good fun, like the showdown between Gus and Mandy. But even though Giancarlo Esposito does look a wee bit awkward doing some of the sword stuff, I'll forgive that, you know, because this is Star Wars, and it's not like we haven't had people who were a little bit too old to be waving swords around. I mean, you know, look at Ian McDiarmid as the Emperor. I mean, he was laughable waving a lightsaber around. And I also liked that Gus actually had a few aces up his sleeve. And I liked the idea of this setup of the dark saber and the fact that it needs to be won. I thought that was a really interesting thing for about 2 seconds, but then of course that all just went out the window. I mean, similarly, when Luke Skywalker actually was taking out the Dark Troopers, that was really cool, that little section. And it was really reminiscent of that scene from Rogue One where Darth Vader takes out the rebels in the hallway. I mean, I'd go as far as to say as I think that was done intentionally. But you see, that's also where the problems come in, because as much as I liked the bits of Luke fighting, it really felt like it went on forever. I mean, it felt like I was watching that for about 10 minutes, and it got boring. And part of that was because they kept cutting back to people's faces so that it could be like, "Oh cool, what's going on?" Which obviously was also to cover up the fact that they didn't show you his face, and it was the, who is it? Is it really Luke? Would they really do that? And yeah, I'm sorry, but the second I saw the green lightsaber and the black outfit, and he's got one black glove on and one hand without a glove, I was like, well, that's Luke Skywalker. And I was curious to see how they were going to do it, if they were going to use a different actor, or what they were going to do. And I didn't really like the deep fake Luke Skywalker face, because that's what it is. That's clearly a deep fake technology. And it wasn't terrible, but it did pull me out of the moment a little bit. And I'd be much happier if they'd just shown like the back of his head, or they'd gotten a different actor in. But I mean, fair enough. I can't really complain when I didn't complain when they used a CGI version of Peter Cushing as Tarkin on Rogue One. So yeah, there you go. Similarly, I didn't really care about the fact that Baby Yoda was leaving. I had no investment between those two. I mean, they played fetch with a ball, but other than that, I didn't really feel like there was a deep relationship between the two of them, because Mandy doesn't really have much of a character, and Baby Yoda is a Muppet, and that's how I feel about that. And to end it at that moment, just when you've established there's a big problem between, Mandy having the Darksaber and Starbuck wanting to fight him for it, I mean, yeah, sure, it's set up for next season. Although I did find it interesting that they specifically kind of made out that she doesn't actually have to kill him to get it, because obviously he didn't kill Gus, and that's going to be important. But I don't understand why they can't just have it that she can go, oh well, slap, I knocked it out of your hand, cool, it's mine now. I mean, done, problem solved. But also, I do have to ask, in that same scene, what was the point of this bit? I mean, for a second, I really thought Gus might have actually killed Starbuck. I mean, obviously, they weren't going to kill a legacy character like that, but I was surprised because you do see her getting knocked over and then just blasted and blasted. And the Beskar armor doesn't cover their entire bodies, it only covers parts of it, which kind of makes it laughable that they never ever get hurt. But also, why didn't they shoot Gus in the head right there? I mean, he just blasted one of them and then tried to kill Baby Yoda, and they just take the gun off him and go, no. I mean, it seems a bit strange. And there was a lot of little moments like that. Like, another one was, consider the fact that when they landed on the ship, the first two people who were out of the shuttle are the two people who don't have invulnerability armor. I mean, it's Kara and Fennec, the two people most likely to die in a gunfight out of the lot of people. And similarly, there was a whole daft bit wherein Kara's gun jammed so that she actually had to use it to hit stormtroopers, who were suddenly inexplicably close enough for her to do that. Now, I get it. Gina Carano is like a UFC MMA fighter, and they like to have her showing that off, but it was ridiculous. Also, as much as I did rave about the scene with the pilot at the beginning, it did feel like they were retreading the ground with, the best scene of the entire season last week with Mayfield and Hess. The next thing is the Dark Troopers section. And, okay, here's the thing, I didn't care. I mean, aside from why is there an open this bay to space button on the front of the room, which seemed weird, and also because they're so skeletal, I wasn't entirely convinced that the vacuum would have blown them out of the room like that, but okay, even if I accept that, I didn't actually find the fight between Mandy and the trooper particularly engaging, because they were just punching each other around, and I thought, well, okay, I don't know what can damage this thing, but I also don't know what can damage him, because it's literally punching his head into a wall at one point. And it was around then I started thinking, this is familiar, and I realised it's because that moment feels like something of Batman vs Superman. But then the entire rest of the fight, I felt like I was watching Terminator's fight. And specifically, once I realised that, I thought, God, this is literally the fight from the end of Terminator Salvation, even down to exactly the same final move being used. And on top of that, okay, the pacing wasn't great in the episode, it felt a little dragged out. And there's really just nothing new here. So overall, I'll be honest here, I get what this show is about, and I get that this show, it's not for me. It's not designed for people like me who are quite pernickety and picky about things, for people who put narrative and story consistency above, fun things happening on screen. And not to be dismissive, this is a show for people who watch Power Rangers. It's a show for folk who watch the Rebels and Clone War cartoons, who don't worry about that, who just want to see a cool Star Wars thing happen. I mean, it's a kids' show basically, and lots of adults watch kids' shows, and lots of shows ostensibly for kids work great for adults. So, I mean, again, I don't mean anything bad by that. But it's just a lot of cool moments and one big fight per episode, and then dangling the shiny keys of nostalgia in the face of fans. I mean, and fair enough, if you get emotionally excited by this kind of thing and seeing a character reappear, I mean, God knows there's enough videos of reactions of this where people literally crying. I mean, yeah, it's fine. If that's what you like, fine. I'm not taking anything away from that. But also, if that's what you like, I'm not entirely sure why you're watching my channel, because I hate stuff like that, because it's lazy, and I find it really lazy. And they've now announced 20 new shows as part of the ongoing Star Wars cinematic universe, and frankly that just makes me tired. And, some of them might be great. I have my hopes really well pinned on the Cassian Andor show, because I liked Rogue One, and I liked his character, and if they did a show, if it ends up being a proper dark spy show, that could actually be fantastic. Although I suspect it probably won't be, it'll be more like this. But I won't prejudge, and for me, I probably won't cover any more of The Mandalorian, because it's kind of just chewing gum for your brain. Or if I do, I'll just cover the whole season once it's finished. But yeah, the plain fact of it is, if I want to play with Star Wars toys, I'll go visit my nephew or something like that, or I'll fire up one of the 100 Star Wars games that exist that I own. But I think my time is better spent watching good telly I really enjoy. And hopefully I'll find some of that after Christmas. So till next time, I've been Ian, And these have been my grumpy opinions on The Mandalorian. And a special thanks to everybody listening, and especially my patrons, and most especially to Michelle Forbes and Judith Coloma, my top tier patrons. Thank you everybody. Everybody stay safe. Cheerio.